On Goro Kiryuin's 60th birthday celebration, the guests were in awe over the stunning beauty that was Reiko Hosho, the heiress of the family running the global enterprise, the Hosho Group. Greeting Goro, she was here on behalf of her father today. With Goro having to take off, his daughter Ayaka and her friends Kaori and Hinako greeted her next. Reiko got so excited, she stumbled over, causing Ayaka to make fun of her. She got up quick, trying to come up with an excuse, when a mysterious man's voice came up with one for her, saying, "Merely picking up an object off of the ground, right?" And when she looked to find him, he was nowhere to be seen. The lights dimmed, and a projector played a video to reflect on Goro's life thus far. However, what came on were the girls' group photo from their sports league. Ayaka wondered if her father sent in the wrong photos. Then, when it changed to a photo featuring Kazuya Teshirogi and Mai, the presenter shut things off quickly, and the friends noted seeing pictures of Mai dampened the mood of the room. Kazuya came to greet them, but the girls were not happy, given he had ditched Mai for an arranged bride. They shamed him for letting his family control him. He simply responded that as the Teshirogi family heir, he'd inherit this hotel someday. He couldn't marry purely out of love. He assumed, out of all people, that Ayaka and Reiko would understand, but they denied any possibility of that. After he left, Hinako teared up and ran off. Ayaka expressed her sympathy. Something that Reiko had never noticed was that Hinako was also in love with Kazuya, and both Hinako and Mai were attached to him at the hip. Kazuya's cousin, Mizuho, came by, and Ayaka left, not wanting to even see her. Mizuho began asking Reiko about a rumor, one where Mai had nearly overdosed on drugs that helped her sleep. Kazuya didn't know about this, and the girls hadn't told him. A good call, because he probably wouldn't be at this event now if he knew. As Reiko took her drink, finding her glass empty, she appreciated the quick and kind butler who assisted her with more drinks. With the occasion proceeding, Inspector Kazamatsuri rang, speeding in his vehicle as he told Reiko there was trouble at Grand Hotel Teshirogi. He had a whole police squad behind him. Getting ready to work, Kaori asked Reiko about her getup, and she freaked out. She couldn't blow her cover in front of Inspector Kaza. The friends remembered Reiko had been hiding her identity from her co-workers the entire time, because she didn't want special treatment for being the Hosho Group heiress. Only the higher-ups knew who she was. Luckily for her, the butler brought her a change of clothes right away, and after changing, she became Detective Reiko Hosho. Security tried to stop her from proceeding, but a simple flash of her badge gave her authority. Arriving at the scene of the crime, she was horrified. Mizuho was lying on the floor with a bloodied head. The friends were horrified, and with Kazuya trying to proceed, Reiko told everyone not to move. This area was to be closed off for investigation. Barely conscious, Mizuho uttered it was a young woman who slammed her. She felt like she'd seen this woman before, but was unsure of where. This woman had a green gem on her necklace. After the ambulance took Mizuho away, Inspector Kaza from the Kunitachi police made his dramatic entrance, teeth shining and all, but Reiko was getting annoyed by him. She had gotten here so fast, he wondered if she was attending the party. She became frantic, assuring him there was no way a measly detective was some kind of rich girl. He was just joking though, but a party for Goro, top tycoon of the economic world? Kaza couldn't fathom why he wasn't invited. After all, his family ran Kazamatsuri Motors. The other partygoers then began to point out Kaza's family vehicle models having awful gas mileage, no substance, and driving crappily. So, he turned things back to the investigation. Victim? Mizuho Teshirogi. The Teshirogi family owned the hotel. The victim claimed she was attacked by a young woman wearing a red dress with a green gem on her necklace. The weapon was likely this potted plant. The man to first discover her was Yuji Mayama. He was an acquaintance of Mizuho from work. Reiko thought something was fishy, but Kaza reminded her not to be so quick to suspect the first discoverer. He did tease the idea of Yuji and Mizuho having a secret relationship though. They then rounded up all the suspects, women in red dresses. Their friends were annoyed, but Reiko needed them to humor Kaza. He poked at the girls for being overdressed, and they tried to clap back, so he got arrogant with his own fashion. He then had them give their backgrounds. First was Ayaka Kiryuin, unemployed. She was of course attending being the birthday boy's daughter. Kaori Miyamoto, employed. Ayaka invited her. Hinako Mori, an office worker, invited by Ayaka as well. Then lastly, Chiaki Nagase. She helped with her father's business, and a friend invited her here. Kaza brought up the green necklace with the red dress, and two of them got defensive. This was all Kaza needed to pinpoint Chiaki, the one girl Mizuho probably wouldn't recognize, since they didn't go to school together. Kazuya barged in and interjected. He claimed there was no way Chiaki could be the perpetrator. She was his fiancée. The girls gasped. Chiaki then mentioned he was still in love with his ex, and asked if he was apprehensive about marrying strictly for family. However, he turned, telling her directly he made up his mind to spend his life with her. He seriously wanted to marry her, but Kaza had to cut the mushiness short. A mere love confession wouldn't prove she didn't attack the victim. However, Kazuya objected with proof. The three of them took a pleasant photo together, meaning Mizuho knew exactly who Chiaki was. Now that her alibi was clear, Kazuya hit a swing and a miss. The event host then shouted at Kazuya to wrap things up. They had an event to host at 5, and all the rooms were booked. It was 4:30, so they had to catch the culprit within 30 minutes. Kaza tried to close out the perpetrator as Yuji, and so they brought him in. He was Mizuho's legal advisor. He couldn't tell them outright initially since he was bound under confidentiality agreements. He presented the text between her and Mizuho, since they were supposed to meet on the rooftop. But before that, something happened. He bumped into Ayaka and alerted the staff about a vase he spilled, causing him to be late for their meeting. After that, he headed to the roof, and that's where he found Mizuho unconscious. Another strikeout from Kaza. Well, it's not like Yuji was wearing a red dress anyway. So, he next tried Ayaka, pointing out that she had some kind of vendetta against Mizuho. However, Reiko reasoned that wasn't enough. Only 20 minutes left. The butler, Kageyama, appeared, saying this case was not so challenging. Not only had he solved the case, he noticed another alarming truth. He kept it quiet, asking if Reiko was unable to solve this simple mystery herself. She was shocked, hearing him call her some kind of moron. She got irritated, telling him he would surely be fired for his insults. However, he gracefully responded that as of today, he'd been assigned as her attendant. She didn't understand, nor did she have time. She was willing to accept his help though, and so, he agreed to seize the culprit. But first, he needed her to perform a public stunt in front of everyone. Reiko and Kageyama came back into the room, with her announcing she was ready to reveal who the culprit was. She suddenly tripped, and this gave the butler the time to close the curtains. And from there, Reiko flashed her phone flashlight at Hinako. Kage explained earlier that her gemstone was alexandrite. It appeared green under white, fluorescent light, or bright sunlight. However, under orange light from a bulb or sunset, the gem assumed a reddish hue. With Hinako being caught, Kaza chased after her. The next issue to tackle though was the fact that Mizuho referred to her attacker as a stranger. Kage had Kaori give her opinion, and things started to click. Mizuho had a different hairstyle, and she wasn't wearing glasses anymore. Kaori could hardly recognize her. And back when her bloodied body was discovered, that was the first time Hinako recognized her as well. She likely attacked Mizuho, thinking she was Kazuya's girlfriend. And despite Mizuho referring to Hinako as a stranger, she still uttered, "I've seen her somewhere before." Kage picked up on the gems Hinako and Mai wore back in the college photo. It probably had special meaning, since alexandrite symbolized secret love. And that secret love for Hinako might actually have been Mai. Hinako wept, explaining her love for Mai. Mai was a big fan of Hinako's jewelry design. She was the first person to ever support Hinako. Hinako felt terrible, thinking Mizuho would never forgive her. The hotel manager was sweating bullets, having to explain Mizuho was engaged with Ayaka's father. That was why Ayaka hated her. Meanwhile, Reiko was trying to make her escape from Kaza, who was trying to drive her back to her place. Luckily, Kage came to save her, arriving in her family's limousine. Driving back, Reiko tried to figure out more about Kage, but he didn't detail his history much, other than when he was growing up, he wanted to play baseball or be a detective. As a child, Reiko was in awe, with her father explaining the cruise ship she saw was yet another Hosho Group asset. It would also be hers someday. Finance, intelligence, real estate, broadcasting, entertainment. Hosho Group owned it all. Well, only if she wanted it. She woke up to a sudden phone call from Kaza. There was a murder case and she had to be there pronto. So in her limo, Kage drove her to the scene, full speed ahead. The victim was Kunoe Kodama, the head of the household and CEO of Kodama Realty. She was the real estate queen of Kunitachi, killed by a big whack to the back of her head. Reiko spotted blood in the vicinity of Kunoe's right index finger, meaning there was likely a dying message that Kaza was eager to point out. The victim mustered every drop of her remaining energy to leave a message, for the sake of evidence. But the murderer spotted it and wiped it away. They sent the bloody towel to forensics, believing that would lead them to their culprit. The family had heard glass break last night and rushed to find a usually vacant room with now a broken window and bloody trophy on the floor. Obviously, that was the murder weapon. The two people that weren't with them during the incident was Kenjiro's daughter, Satomi, who was fortunately unharmed, but unfortunately, Kazuo's mother was already dead at that point. It was around 11 p.m. Reiko and Kaza grouped together, putting what they suspected had happened in order. Just before 11, the murderer whacked Kanoe with the trophy, ran outside, and hurled the murder weapon into this room on the second floor. There were no footprints because of the rain, and the hurling of the trophy was likely to fabricate an alibi and create a false timeline of the crime. They turned back to question Kazuo, learning even though the estate was protected by a security system, the alarm hadn't sounded. Everyone was gathered in the living room, given they were the only suspects. At 11 p.m., Kazuo and Kenjiro were drinking in the drawing room. Kazuo was the victim's eldest son, and next in line to be CEO of Kodama Realty. Kenjiro was Kanoe's nephew, and manager of Kodama Realty's Kansai branch. He came with his daughter, Satomi, who had been sleeping at the time of the incident. Goro, Kanoe's second son in his third year of university, was only playing games at the time. Then, Akiko, the eldest daughter and middle of 3 children, was upset because she was supposed to be at a host club tonight. Lastly, there was Kanoe's secretary and driver, Toshiaki Maeda, who was servicing a car in the annex garage. Kaza was freaking out, having no idea who to investigate. It had to be someone who could throw a bronze trophy on the second floor window. Goro tried pinning it on Akiko, since she was athletic and did shot put, but she tossed it back, saying Goro played baseball as a pitcher. Hearing this, Kaza went into a rant about how he was also an ace pitcher back in the day. Goro had played in the championships, but not since breaking his shoulder. Even though he still had the skill to throw the trophy to the second floor window, he claimed he wouldn't do something so flashy, and that the murder was probably trying to frame him. Kazuo then pointed out how Goro was easy to scapegoat. He was shady, having gotten busted for MLM scams. Their mother had gotten furious over that. But Kazuo wasn't exactly safe here. Kanoe was furious at him during dinner due to his blunders, and told him she would just pass on her CEO role to someone else. He stabbed his food, uttering, "I'll kill her," but now he was saying he didn't mean it. Kazuo wasn't the only one who benefited from his mother's death though. With her gone, Kenjiro could stop embezzling funds. They all could benefit from inheritance money, except for Toshiaki, being just an assistant and all. During more questioning, Satomi suddenly got up and fainted with Reiko to catch her, all while forensics found a key in a pot in the room where Kanoe was murdered. Getting evaluation from a doctor, Satomi was found to have fainted from anemia. It was there, Reiko noticed a window curtain cord in the trash. She tried asking Satomi what she was going to say before she fainted, but the girl couldn't remember. Outside, Kaza observed the room where Satomi slept was directly above the vacant room where the weapon was. He proposed the idea that perhaps the culprit accidentally threw the trophy at the wrong window, maybe even aiming to kill Satomi instead. Back inside the house, the two detectives overheard Kazuo and Kenjiro whispering about wanting to check on Kunoe's will. Kazuo in particular was concerned that she might have given the head of the company to her secretary Toshiaki, since he was quite the capable man she seemed to trust most. Kaza and Reiko then questioned Toshiaki. He didn't believe he'd inherit anything, but thought of all her children as scum. He uttered, "Sons born into wealthy families and rich heiresses were completely useless," causing both Reiko and Kaza to tell him not to judge, since they were from well-off families as well. Goro then came by, bringing up his alibi that night at 11 talking to his friend on the phone. The friend had heard glass breaking over the phone, and at that point, Goro hung up and went to check on him. Goro's alibi was now solid, and so, Kaza and Reiko were at a brick wall in this case. Back at home, it even upset Reiko while she had dinner. Seeing her stumped actually brought Kage great pleasure, but otherwise, he was willing to offer his opinion. But she at first refused, believing he'd just call her a moron again. Then, after she relayed the case to him, he just couldn't help it. He was resisting exploding in laughter at the sheer absurdity from her being unable to solve what was so simple. He started with the fact that she and Inspector Kaza were too obsessed with alibis. It's caused them to steer off course. For starters, he pointed out that the inspector has misinterpreted the events. According to Kaza's analysis, the murderer lobbed the trophy upstairs to create a false timeline. But to accomplish that, they could have just used the downstairs window, which would have been easier. Still, Kage determined the culprit was fabricating an alibi still, not to create a false timeline, but rather to narrow down the ones who couldn't throw. Their mistake was believing the culprit could only be someone who could throw a weapon to the second floor. The adults all shared the logic that Goro could still throw up to the second floor, even with a broken shoulder. However, Satomi must have taken the broken shoulder fact more seriously, and so she devised what she considered a believable false alibi for Goro, and here's how Kage believed she did it. 11 p.m. After the crime was committed, by sheer coincidence, she discovered Kanoe's murdered body. There, she learned that Goro was the culprit and wiped the bloody message with a towel. She proceeded to her bedroom on the 3rd floor, where she used a curtain string threaded around the trophy and lowered it to the 2nd floor window, dangling it like a pendulum. All she had to do from there was retrieve the string. Reiko wondered why Satomi would cover for Goro, but to Kage, this was obvious. She should have considered Satomi's phone wallpaper. It's possible she harbored a secret love for Goro deep in her heart. She had even mentioned back during interrogation that when she watched Goro play baseball, he was the coolest. Developing an admiration for a slightly older boy in her life was quite common for girls her age. Satomi fainted, likely because it dawned on her that her effort to protect Goro would prove meaningless. As Reiko was about to call Goro the murderer and Satomi the post-murder accomplice, Kage warned her that dying messages weren't always as they seemed. They could be forged however one pleased. He added that Kazuo, who declared, "I'm gonna kill her," at dinner would have been the ideal suspect to be framed. Yet, the murderer opted to write Goro as the dying message. The murderer must have realized that Satomi was responsible for wiping the dying message to protect Goro. Now, the murderer had a dilemma. If Satomi went to the police to tell them Goro's name was written in blood, only one person who was absent from dinner and unaware of the spat between Kazuo and Kanoe became suspicious. Back at the Kodama house, with a masked man about to kill Satomi, Reiko and Kaza put a stop to him, unmasking the man as Toshiaki the secretary. He was born and raised in a barber shop that Kanoe bought the land of. He resented Kanoe for stealing the shop from his family. They became miserable. His dad overworked himself to pay their debt and died in an accident. His mom followed shortly after. Despite that, he didn't intend to get revenge by killing Kanoe. He just wanted to reclaim what she stole from his family. But that night, she really pissed him off. She presented his takeover bid, easily noticing he was trying to capture Kodama Realty. She had known for a long time that his family used to own the barbershop she bought out. She knew as far back as when he had applied to be her driver. He called her heartless, and in response, she told him he was too emotional. He could never take over her company, even if he tried, and that he'd fail just like his father. This was enough to set him off into killing her. One thing he didn't know, though, was why the picture chosen for Kanoe's funeral was her most treasured photo. The retirement home she built through Kodama Realty over Toshiaki's family barbershop had a plaque that read, "Since 1985. Yet, the retirement home was built in 1995, 10 years later. 1985 was actually the year Toshiaki's family barbershop was founded. Where the Kodama family was trying to break into Kanoe's safe, Reiko told them the code, which was 1985. Opening it, Kazuo inherited the company, tossing Toshiaki's letter aside. Opening the letter, it read, "Toshiaki, despising me won't bring your parents back. Live for the future, not the past. I was young and immature when I robbed you of your precious place. I don't expect your forgiveness. I prepared a new place to fulfill your needs. There should be a gold key in my desk drawer for you." Toshiaki wept reading this. Back in 1995, Kanoe Kodama constructed a building. There was a wristwatch store, a coffee shop, and stores previously on the property when it was acquired. She planned to give Maeda that building's barbershop. Reiko was still unsatisfied, wondering why Kanoe always acted so cold, because that led to so many misunderstandings. Kage surmised, presumably, this was the only way Kanoe knew how to protect her company and family. Losing the company would put her family out on the streets, and in that safe, she had concealed what was most precious to her. It was a photo album of her and her children. If only she had shown her loving side more, then this murder may have been completely avoided. Going out for a festival one evening, Reiko, Kari, and Ayaka were a little disgruntled. with the scene looking like it was couples night. Ayaka gained determination to get married this year, but Reiko was skeptical of that idea. Kage was then asked for a favor by a woman passing by, where a show was going on for some bootleg shopping district Power Rangers. Kage was now posing as the show's villain, seeing her butler get chased around. Reiko wondered what the heck was going on. During a new case, Reiko could barely handle the fact the victim was wearing nothing but briefs. She tried to calm down, telling herself to think of the body as a dandelion on the side of the road. Kaza teased her, asking if she was interested in the corpses of dead men, annoying her internally. The body belonged to Shinichi Nozaki, age 39, single. He worked for a medical equipment manufacturer. The estimated time of death was around 8 last night, and the likely cause was suffocation from breathing in vomit. There's a possibility he was poisoned, so they were still waiting for an autopsy. They couldn't find his phone or house keys, or any poison in the home. Kaza then shouted at the stench of yakisoba noodles. He proposed the victim enjoyed a delicious yakisoba meal with his girlfriend, where she poisoned him. They first interrogated Shinichi's coworker, Eri Sawada, the person who found him dead with the help of the apartment's custodian. Shinichi didn't come to work on time, and he hadn't answered his phone either. So, she had the custodian unlock his door, where they found him half naked on the floor. Kaza wondered if he was planning a vacation with his girlfriend. There was no evidence of roughhousing, which suggested Shinichi knew the murderer personally. They couldn't find his clothes anywhere, and when checking the washer, it reeked of yakisoba. Inside were traces of dried seaweed and yakisoba sauce. But where were his clothes? Reiko wondered if the murderer could have taken them to avoid getting tracked down. Still believing the culprit could have been Shinichi's girlfriend, Kaza wanted to do a deep dive on Shinichi's dating life, pronto. However, his coworkers hadn't heard anything about a girlfriend. They didn't know anything about his private life either. He was never buddy-buddy with anyone at work. They tried asking Eri, who claimed she was not friends with Shinichi, and also calling him a cheapskate. She supposedly had only gone the day they discovered his body to collect his work keys, since he'd recently resigned. Her alibi at the time of the murder? She was at a neighborhood friend's house drinking after the festival. Outside, Reiko suddenly got a call about a witness. They met with the Yellow Ranger from the festival, who explained he saw a woman emerge from room 504, Shinichi's apartment, around 10 p.m. The woman wore a skirt long enough to graze the floor, but with her humongous hat and long hair, he couldn't see her face. He did notice she was fairly tall for a woman, however, perhaps even the same height as himself, at 170 centimeters. That would put her 10 centimeters taller than Shinichi. If they walked around together, people would for sure notice the height difference. They spent the next few days asking civilians, but only ended up sweaty with no additional leads. The suspect's photo then blew away, landing on the mascot from the summer festival, who shot Reiko with some cool water. It was just what she needed. The mascot, Kuninyan, remembered Shinichi. She had seen him at the festival, meow. When she bumped into him, he got yakisoba on his pants, and helping her up, she smelled like alcohol after. Kuninyan did notice a shorter woman was with Shinichi, about 150 centimeters. This led Kaza to suspect there were 2 women that Shinichi was two-timing. I don't think this guy is gonna get anything right. At the station, a smartphone was found in the shrine's fountain the day prior, and seemed to have been smashed intentionally. The 2 detectives went to Shinichi's workplace, finding out the phone did in fact belong to him. One of the coworkers knew it was Shinichi's because of the medical tape. Shinichi had said his ring holder wouldn't stick on anymore, so he fixed it with tape. They sent the phone for DNA analysis immediately, finding he was poisoned by dimpilate, a pesticide. There was alcohol detected as well. Sounds like the poison was mixed into his drink. Reviewing the events, Kuninyan bumped into the couple at 7:30 that evening. Estimated time of death was around 8, and the Yellow Ranger witnessed a woman exiting Nozaki's apartment at 10. At dinner, Reiko asked Kage if he had seen Kuninyan crash into the couple. Unfortunately, he was too busy escaping from the Yahoo Rangers at that time to notice. Seeing her struggle, he once again offered his assistance, where she refused again, not wanting to be teased for her inability to solve it. The 2 detectives later spent their time going through all of the places Shinichi submitted marriage applications for. At one place, he exaggerated his height to be 10 centimeters taller, and he apparently exchanged messages with 3 users. One of them had to be the murderer. First was Aya Saito, age 40. She worked part-time at a supermarket. They questioned her, and she was unaware that she was seeing other women as well. She matched the profile of the suspect, being 170 centimeters herself, and she had clocked out of work at 9:02 on the night of the festival. Second was Kanai Mayuzumi, age 39. She's a care worker. She was 160 centimeters tall, and on the night of the festival, she had the day off. So, She was home caring for her mom. She was surprised to find out Shinichi was seeing other women, but figured as much. That's how spouse hunting apps went anyway. Lastly, Chizuru Morino, aged 37. She worked at a flower shop. They found out she was 150 centimeters, and when learning Shinichi was dating other women, she called him a scumbag liar. On the night of the festival, she claimed she was at home, but then getting called to help a customer, she straight handed the customer Dimpilate, the poison used to kill Shinichi. Shinichi became acquainted with 3 women on a marriage app, and dated them all simultaneously, but his triple header got outed, sparking an all-out war, ending in murder. But they still needed to pinpoint the exact order of events. Reiko brought up the case once again to her butler, who reminded her she didn't want his help. She was stubborn, but eventually gave in, asking for his help. Upon hearing the whole case, Kage asked her if she was perhaps utterly blind. She then shouted at him in anger, but he pointed out that she and Inspector Kaza were too fixed on particular suspect features once again, their heights. They believed the culprit could only be either the shortest girl or the tallest one, or some combination of the two. However, Kage pointed out that obviously anyone could grow taller using platform shoes. Who killed Shinichi? Find out next time by subscribing to my channel. For now though, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.